There was a moment in the film for me that blew me away, between Nick and Taylor. For you, I'm sure this is such a tough question. There were many, but is there one moment that you're just so blown away by?
There are so many. I did give the example of that scene in the bedroom, which is just, for me, in terms of their chemistry, is so beautiful. I have to say that the confrontation scene in Henry's bedroom I think was something that we were all dreading at filming, because we knew what it was going to cost all of us. And I knew that, I mean, practically speaking, as a filmmaker, I knew I had other things to do that day. So I also couldn't indulge in too long a process on set for that scene. But I also knew I couldn't leave until I got what I needed. And we did it maybe 2/3 of the way through the shoot. And it took longer than we expected it to. And I actually, there's a couple of things that I didn't shoot that day because I just cut them right out. And we had to break for lunch, and we hadn't finished the scene. And I was really, really worried that we were going to come back from lunch and I was just going to have lost them, and we would never recapture what was happening on set before lunch. And it was the pivotal part of the scene, is the end, when Alex makes his ultimatum to Henry. And we got back on set, and we started filming again. And instantly, in the first take, after lunch, Taylor started crying. And Nick was facing away from him, and he heard Taylor. And Nick started crying.
We can figure out a way to love each other on our own terms, no one else's.
That is simply not possible, and you know it.
Fine. I'll leave. And you can live in your tower and protect your heart for the rest of your life, and nothing will ever happen to you. But Henry, nothing will ever happen to you. So if you want me to go, you have to tell me to leave.
Please. Don't make me.
It is the only way you're getting rid of me. Because I would never leave this room if I didn't think there was any hope of holding on to the happiness that I have found with you. And if you think otherwise, then you don't know me. So tell me to go, Henry. And I promise I will walk out that door and trouble you no longer.
And the back half of that scene is so beautiful because they're doing such great work. And I really had a difficult time cutting it because there was such beautiful, nuanced work from from both of them. But what to me was so remarkable about it is they had just had lunch. and they came right back into it, and they were more dialed in, and they were more in touch with each other than before. And it was pretty remarkable. And I have to say that was the moment I knew that whatever happened with this movie, those two actors would be fine in their careers.
Yeah. That was the scene I was thinking of as well. It was pretty remarkable. I can't wait for people to see that one. Was there a scene or two from the book that you thought, okay, man, I better get this just right?
There was, the cake scene, of course.
Yeah.
I think that for many reasons, it's the opening of the film. It really establishes the characters so much, but it's also just the most iconic moment in the book, one of the most iconic moments in the book. And so there were a million reasons why I knew I needed to get it right. And it was also the most technical thing I had filmed up to that point. I think we shot it in our second week. And, the first few days of filming were pretty gentle on me and everybody. And then we had this 2-day shoot inside the ballroom with this cake, with these extras, with all of these other scene elements that were happening. And then on day 2, we had to drop this cake and get them all mucky, and it had to be funny and it had to be technically accurate. That was the one that I was really, really uptight about, because there was no margin for error and there were lots of opportunities for error. So, that was the most technical filmmaking we did on it. And the funny thing is that when it came to the actual shot of the cake going into their faces, because that whole cake was foam, rubber, and latex. And so for the most part, the cake is phony, and it's just it's a fake cake. And so we could do a lot with it and drop it, and it just bounced, and then you could drop it again. But when it came to getting them dirty, we had a couple of duplicate costumes for them. And there was a plan to get them showered and hair and makeup redone as fast as possible. But I just knew that I was going to lose too much time, and I needed to just get it done in as few takes as possible. And it was me and my production designer off camera. And we were, at the count of 3, we threw the cake and the icing into their faces, and it was a bullseye.
Wow.
It was an absolute bullseye. And we watched it, and we just decided to keep moving on, and we had it. So I lucked out. That was the luckiest break on this entire film, was getting the cake in their faces on the first take, the first and only take. That was it. And then the one that I was really excited to do was the V&A scene at the Victoria and Albert Museum, the scene at night in the museum. It just
beautiful.
That was the scene. That's my favorite scene in the book. And
when he clicked that music on, I was like, oh, come on now, come on.
Yeah. That was the one I was most looking forward to. We were locked into the V&A overnight. We had it all to ourselves. It was pretty magical, and it was just the two of them. There were no extras. There was a very, the crew. We were just all like a family at that point, and so it was a real night at the museum. And then picking that music, because I know in the book it's Elton John's "Your Song," and which I knew instinctively wasn't gonna work for us in the film. It just wasn't the right sound, and so we auditioned a lot of different songs. And on set, we used that one. We used the Perfume Genius, and my Perfume Genius was gonna do a new cover of an older song for us that we really were excited about. And then I cut together the assembly of the film, and we watched the scene with Perfume Genius's "Can't Help Falling in Love," and we knew it was the right song, and it was perfect. And so that was another lucky break, because the song that we just decided to use on set was the song we ended up using in the film.
I think that song's going to soar to number 1 when
I hope so.
out.
It's a beautiful recording. It's an absolutely beautiful recording.
Absolutely beautiful. And I have to tell you, when I put up a story on Monday night saying that I saw the movie and I screened it and it was great, I had so many people message me, people I haven't even spoken to in forever. And I was shocked at how many of those people were straight. This story, this book has such a built-in fandom from all areas and walks of life. I don't feel like you're the type of person that lets that pressure sneak in when you're making your art, when you're making your project, when you made the movie. But how do you kind of not let that cloud your mind when you are creating this movie, knowing that there's so many people who are waiting and wanting and loving this?
I think I learned in theater that worrying about what other people think is just really a pointless exercise. You only have, especially on a film, you only have one chance to get it right. You're only on that set one day. You got to move on to the next scene. You're always just moving forward. And so you really, on a film set, you are living in the present. There's no past, there's no future. And that is actually incredibly helpful for focus, and, I knew that. I think it's just sort of the tightrope thing. If you look down, you're going to fall. I didn't think about ultimately what anybody would think of the film. I just kept following my gut and following my instincts. I knew this story. I knew And look, it's my version of Red, White, and Royal Blue, right? It's not anybody else's. It's not even Casey's, and Casey will be the first to admit it. Casey's book is Casey's book, and my movie is my movie. It's my movie based on Casey's book, and it is my reaction to Casey's book. And the things that I love about Casey's book are what I put into the movie. And I knew that I would own it regardless. So I might as well do it in exactly the way that my instinct tells me to do and not worry about what other people would think.
Man, that must be incredibly freeing. And I read a quote you gave in a different interview, and you said, "Love it or hate it, it's the movie I set out to make." That doesn't always happen. I love that quote.
Yeah, it's true. I look, the one thing that is really true about this process is that I was surrounded by incredibly talented people across the board. This cast is a dream cast. I worked with one of the legendary cinematographers in the business. I mean, Stephen Goldblatt was the cinematographer for Angels in America. And in addition to the Cotton Club, which is a forgotten gem of Francis Coppola's. But I never ever felt as if I had to do this on my own. And I never felt that I did not have it was really remarkable that every single idea I had was executed perfectly. And, look, the things that we knew weren't going to work physically or within budget, we adjusted because that's just filmmaking. But it really, the movie I dreamed of in my head when I started working on this film is largely up there on the screen.